About these various different kinds of health, we're talking about emotional health. Emotional health deals with how a person feels, why they feel that way, and how they handle those emotions. Mental health is the ability to move throughout the day in a balanced manner. There are certain disorders that can go along with mental health. And social health speaks to one's ability to work with others and to get along with others, and to handle different social situations. So let's take a look. Emotions is kind of a neat picture. Emotions can range from being happy to proud, sorry, tired, whatever it might be. But really emotions are feelings such as joy, love, anger, and fear. Sometimes we understand why we feel that way. Maybe we heard a joke and it's funny, so we laugh. Sometimes we don't necessarily understand why we might feel a way. Maybe we're angry and not really quite sure why. Understanding your emotions is an important part to social, emotional, and mental health. One part that affects you as a person, certainly with your emotions, but you in general, are your peers. And when we talk about peers, we're talking about friends and other people in your age group. That's friends and other people in your age group. Really what we're talking about is kind of your classmates, your friends, if you're in a club or on a team, the people you associate with, maybe people in your youth group. And peers are very important, and they play a big part in the choices you make. So let's talk about what peer pressure is. There's two kinds. Peer pressure, just generally speaking, is anything that you feel pressure from your friends to do, or your peer groups, or the people you associate with to do. These things can either be positive or negative. So let's talk about an example of positive peer pressure. Let's say your group of friends is really big on handling responsibilities and studying. Let's say you might go over to their house. There's three of you guys. One of you might say, hey, let's play some video games, and somebody else says, you know what, no, we got to get our homework done first. And people kind of agree with that, and so that kind of wins out. So you guys wind up doing your homework, and then you play your games. That's an example of positive peer pressure. Perhaps if you weren't around your peer group, you might have just played the video games and left your homework till later. But because you had good friends or a positive peer group, you handled things responsibly. So positive peer pressure is when friends and other people in your age group influence you to do healthy and positive activities. On the other hand, negative peer pressure is basically just the opposite of that. When friends and other people in your age group influence you to do negative things, and things that aren't healthy for you. In this picture example, an example of negative peer pressure could be underage drinking. And maybe you're in a social situation where alcohol's present, and the people around you are pressuring you to drink, and it's something that you know isn't right. And so let's take a look at some ways to deal with that. These ways of dealing with this are called refusal skills. Refusal skills are basically ways to say no. And there's several different ways you can do this. Obviously, you can just say no. You can leave the situation. You can change the subject. But a refusal skill is a way to say no to something, generally speaking, from negative peer pressure. So if we categorize these ways of saying no, we can call them STOP techniques. It's a really good acronym that kind of brings all these things together. STOP techniques. STOP techniques are the following. S is for say no in a firm voice. You know, if somebody asks you to do something that you know isn't right, just tell them no, I'm not going to do it, and be very clear. You don't have to be rude about it, you don't have to be anything like that, but you can be very clear and assertive in the way that you say no. Another thing you could do is to tell them why not. Hey, you know what, I don't want to smoke because I'm an athlete and I know that's going to affect my sports poorly. I won't be able to run as fast or whatever it might be. So tell them why you think it's a bad idea. Offer other ideas. Hey, instead of smoking or going to that party where there might be alcohol or bad stuff, let's go to the movies instead. You change the environment, change the situation. You offer other ideas instead of doing the thing that isn't good. And finally, you can leave. If you are in a situation and people are pressuring you, say, again, to smoke or something like that, just say, hey, if you guys aren't going to respect that, I'm going to leave. I'll see you guys later. And just leave. Doing so shows a lot of self-respect, for one, on your part, it's definitely the right way to handle things, and it sends a message to other people that actually down the road they might wind up following themselves. So that's stop techniques. Okay, so let's talk about conflict. Conflict arises when we're talking about peers and family and all this different kind of stuff. Let's be really clear. Conflict in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. Conflict is when there's a disagreement in ideas or beliefs or interests. Okay, we want to be respectful of other people's beliefs and interests and ideas, but we also want to find some kind of resolution. A really good example of this might be you and your friend are going to go do something, and your friend might want to play Xbox or something like that, and you might want to go to a movie. Well, that can create a conflict. The best thing to do is to talk it out, compromise, find a solution that you both are going to be okay with. And that's a healthy way to deal with conflict. But again, conflict in and of itself is A, inevitable, and B, not a bad thing. It's how you handle it that's important. Okay, so let's talk about how mental, social, emotional health affects when we're talking about family. Your family is your core group of obviously your relatives, parents, siblings, whatever it might be, extended family. And the main thing that a family does for you is to nurture you in a good, positive situation. When we're talking about nurturing, we're talking about to have your physical, mental, emotional, and social needs met. I used a picture of a plant growing because it's kind of really what it is. You take care of it. You water it. You feed it. You make sure it's not in any danger. You keep it in safe places. That kind of thing. So a healthy, nurturing environment is what is really important to help you grow to learn how to handle social situations, have good mental health, things of that nature. Now, unfortunately, there can be negative impacts of families. There can be neglect and abuse. Sometimes families fracture, which again, society does a really good job of handling and working situations where that too can wind up being positive things can come out of that. But there's also negative impacts of families. It's really important if you're in this situation to kind of reach out to a positive peer group. Maybe your sports team or whatever. You really get into sports and you get a lot of nurturing from that as well. But it's really important to be aware of these situations as well. And obviously, if there's cases of abuse or neglect, that's when it's important to involve social workers or some.